Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurudeva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam, Trilokyam Sacharacharam, Tat Padam Darshitam Yena, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Cha Pita, Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha, Tvameva Vedyad Dravinam, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Jai Guru. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Marupena Sansita, Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Shakti Rupena Sanstita, Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Buddhi Rupena Sansitaha, Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Lakshmi Rupena Sansitaha, Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. So tonight we start the 9th chapter. We finished the section where we've backtracked, actually, where Hemachuda has heard the allegory of Hemaleka's life, her friend who was in bad company, and we had the exegesis of it. She had the explanation of it. She's talked about the value of faith, the value of self-effort, all these ideas. So let's see where the story picks up now. Will you help us out, please, Puneet?
Sure. Chapter 9. Page 131. Shrutvetham priyaya proktam hemachūdo divismitah harsha gadaya vacha punarvaktum prachakrame. Having thus heard what was spoken by his beloved, Hemachuda, who was greatly surprised, began to speak again with a voice faltering due to joy.
So what's happening is he's beginning to tune up to her a bit. And their minds are meeting in that thunderous silence. I posted on Facebook this week a quote from Swamiji. And he said, when the teacher and the student can tune up together, that's when the real transmission of the teaching starts to happen. So his heart is full of love and joy. not in the romantic sense now, but he's tuning to her mind. Going on.
धन्या प्रियेसि निपुणा अहो ते ज्ञानवैभवम् किं वर्ण्यामि यत् प्रोक्तम् अख्यारूपतयाखिलम्. Dear, you are blessed and clever. Ah, how great is the glory of your knowledge! How shall I describe what was explained entirely in the form of a story?
So he's beginning to have a subtle enough mind to have what we call lakshanam, the implied meaning of stories, of scriptures. He's able to grasp it. So we don't take things literalistically. Going on.
Evam vidham swavrittam me nabhav advitam kvachit tvadyuktaham samprati tatkaramalakavat sputam smaramya anubhavamyan antaraho lokakriyad bhuta kasa para chitirmata katham tasyatu no janihi. My history of such a kind was not known to me anywhere or at any time. By your words, I remember and experience that within me clearly like a fruit in the palm of the hand at present. Ah, wonderful is the action of the world. Who is that supreme consciousness, the mother? How does our birth from her happen?
So he's been able to identify the progression of his own ignorance. So let's review the salient points of the story. As the result of vasana, which are the impressions left in the unconscious because of egoism, because of I-ness and minus, we have two powers that become operative. The first is called avritti or avarana shakti, veiling power. That's ignorance. What do we mean by ignorance? Even though I am that partless Brahman, I am that goddess, somehow in my mind, I don't know it. Then the next thing is what we call vikshepa shakti, projecting power. The mind then projects this counterfeit self, this chit chaya. Chaya means a reflection or a shadow. This jiva bhavana, this feeling that I am a person. And simultaneously with that, I see a world of name and form separate from me, which is joy giving and misery producing. And then I need to get from point A to point B in order to be happy. That is the world. That is samsara. That is the mind. And the root cause of it is ignorance. Ignorance. So now he's at least intellectually gotten a grasp of, oh, that's the problem. Now, tell me about my essential nature or your mother or the mother. Tripuri. What's the truth of her? Next verse.
Keva vayam swarupam kim asmakam tat bravimi me iti prishta hemalekha Ramo vacha priyam prati. Who are we and what is our natural state? Tell me that. Rama, Himalekha, thus questioned, said to her husband,
So now he's asking the fundamental question. Who am I? He does this in the plural. Who are we? What is our natural state? Koham. Who am I? So let's see how she responds.
Natha shrinu pravakshyami godhartham idam adarat vicharya yatmano rupam buddhaya antya vishuddhaya. Lord, I shall explain this secret matter. Listen, investigate with attention the nature of your own self with an extremely purified intellect.
So here she lays out here the process by which we rediscover the self. Now, let's back up. In the beginning, our minds are not subtle enough for effective vichara, self inquiry. The root here is vich, which means to winnow, to separate the wheat from the chaff. So that's this investigation. That's this investigation we need to undertake. But it's only efficacious in a very subtle mind. So, in order to achieve that subtle mind, we have all these preparatory practices. We have upasana. This is what Parashurama did. Remember, for 12 years, he worshipped the goddess before he was subtle enough to come to Dattatreya and say, what's it all about? In Bhagavad Gita, we have the whole theory laid out in the second chapter, and then Arjuna goes, duh. So Krishna starts from the very beginning, and we have chapters 3, 4, and 5, which are karma yoga. All these are preparatory exercises. They sharpen the wonder sword of knowledge. If you look at Tibetan iconography, one of the Tibetan gods is a dude named Manjushri, and he's always seen with a sword above his head, the wonder sword of knowledge, so we can discriminate. What do we mean by this? So if I had a bowl of uncooked rice and raisins, and I said, discriminate, separate the raisins from the rice. That would be time consuming, but reasonably easy to do. Or if you got a packet of wild rice and long grain rice, separate the two. Okay, the wild rice is dark. You can separate that. But if I said, now separate long grain rice from short grain rice, ooh, that's a little harder. And then if I said separate basmati rice from Minnesota rice, same length, pretty much the same, they're just a little different in taste. That's a difficult discrimination. Likewise, do you see the glass? You're not a glass. That's pretty easy to do. Everybody knows I'm not a glass. I'm the one looking at the glass. We can go through all the outer senses. We come to the body. When you were a child, you had a little body. You went through adolescence and your body changed. Now you're an adult and your body is changed again. But have not you been aware of the changes in the body? You are the knower of the body, just like a pot. I am not the body. We go to the realm of feelings. Sometimes I feel joy, sometimes I feel sorrow, etc. Whatever the feelings are, even if they're intense, I know them. I am not my feelings. Go to the realm of thought. Your head, do the problem 2 plus 2. Visualize a strawberry. Remember what you had for lunch. That place is your intellect. It's cooler than mind, which is where feeling, emotions, emotion with movement happens. But the subtlest of all discriminations is to discriminate between the self and the thought of self. Between aham and ahankara. Ahankara is an object of awareness, but it's very subtle. It's very luminous. We can only do that discrimination in a very subtle, pure, quiet mind. Now she uses this wonderful word that we get in scripture, shrunahu. Listen carefully. Whenever you see that in a verse, which means this is important stuff. So all the various branches of yoga, all the various practices, if you're doing japa, if you're doing puja, if you're doing whatever is asana, they're all valuable. What is their value? They purify the head and the heart. Or if you're doing asana, you're purifying the nervous system too. But they all meet at the point of self-investigation. Who am I? What is my essential nature? So here she says, that's what we must do. Very important verse. Any thoughts on this? Any questions? Next verse.
Can I turn the fan on?
Na drishyam napi tadvachyam ato vyakshami tat katham yate swatmam swarupe vai tato gyaasyasi mataram. That the true nature of one's own self is not a visible object and is not to be spoken or predicated even. Therefore, how shall I describe it? When the true nature of one's own self is indeed known, then you will know the mother.
Yes. So here is the most important point to know about yourself. Yourself is never known as an object. I like to tell this true story. So when I met Swamiji, I decided I was going to move into this ashram in San Francisco, and it was run by one of Swamiji's disciples, this American guy named Ram. And so I moved in. And I'd done spiritual work in other traditions. So, I knew what I was doing. So I'm sitting on my bed one afternoon, deep meditation. And all of a sudden, there was all this gold light. And I was just bathed in ecstasy. And I said, oh, this must be the self. So I went out to see Ram, and I said, Ram, I think I've realized the self. He says, oh, really? Tell me about it. I said, well, I was sitting on my bed and meditating, and this experience happened. And he said, oh, okay. So what mind state were you in before this happened? I said, just ordinary mind state, sitting there in meditation. He said, and who knew that mind state? And I said, I did. And when you had this spiritual experience, who knew that spiritual experience? And I went, I did. And he said, who is aware of this conversation we're having right now? And I said, I am. He said, that's yourself. You will never experience the self as some phenomenon. You're not going to be in meditation and go, oh, that's the self, I saw it go by. No. What is it that is always there, by which everything else is known? Now, let's talk about what we need to do to realize the self. Realization of the self is difficult, not because it's far away. It's difficult because of its profound ordinariness. It is constant. It's ever there. And because of that, we miss it. Now, in the world, the most common way in which we know things is by compare and contrast. So this is a phone and this is a water glass. The phone is different than the water glass. The water glass is different than the phone. You can describe the glass, it's got different qualities than the phone. Compare and contrast. You never think this is a phone, you never think this is a glass. That's how we know stuff in the world. But you've never had the experience of unself. There is nothing to contrast it with. It never shuts off. So there's another methodology we use, and that is the methodology of distillation. Let me give you a worldly example. If I have 3 glasses of water, one has red food coloring, one has blue food coloring, one has yellow food coloring, and I want to know what's the color of pure water, what must I do? I must remove everything that is not water. So I don't use a Brita filter. I get out my is that what it's called? No water? Zero water it's called. Yes. So I pour this glass into the zero water filter and it comes out clear. Then I take the next glass and I do the same with that. It comes out clear. And the third one, I filter it. It comes out clear. What do you know? Water is not red, blue, or yellow. It is colorless. So also, what we're going to do is remove from our attention anything that can be known, any objective phenomena. And we want to know what's the noumenon, as they say in philosophy. The knower, not the known. If it has a beginning and an end, if it occurs in time and space, if it has qualities and characteristics, if it has name and form, and most importantly, if it is an object of cognition, gross in the world of objects, or subtle in the world of feelings and thoughts. That's not it. It is the eternal subject, which you're experiencing right now. Listen carefully, Shrunahu. You will not get a new self. My problem is not lack of experience of the self. My problem is, because of ignorance, I superimpose upon that direct selfing, eyeing, all sorts of nonsense. Superimposition. Adhyas is the technical term. So I'm going to peel away all these unexamined assumptions about who I am. Now, she says something else in this verse that's quite wonderful and profound. She says, if you know yourself, you will know the mother. In Vedanta, we have these four great utterances, these Mahavakyas, which have within them the totality of the teaching. The first one, each one comes from one of the Upanishads, by the way. Prajnanam Brahma. Brahman, ultimate reality, the ground of being, here the mother, is consciousness. Where is it? Outer space, on top of Mount Kailash. I am Atma Brahma. This self is Brahman. Oh, the self is Brahman. Guruji, your self is Brahman, I'm a worm. No. What self is Brahman? Tat Tvam Asi. You are that. Oh, that's nonsense, Jim. I have a hard enough time paying my bills. How can I be the omnipotent God? So we go through what I call the cosmic striptease. You have a physical body. The infinite has a physical body called the Jagat, the creation. Vishwa is what it is. You have a subtle body of thoughts and feelings. The infinite has a subtle body, the total mind, all the thoughts and feelings that have ever been thoughted and felted, and ever will be. You have a causal body, your bundle of vasanas. The infinite has a causal body, the total vasana. We call that Ishvara, the Lord. But at the core of your being is that witnessing consciousness, the knower of everything. And that consciousness, Prajnanam Brahma, which is the substratum of the entire universe. That self in you, Atma, and that Brahman, they are the same. So when you realize yourself, you then know the self in everybody else. So Vish was over there on the couch. She sees the room from her viewpoint. I'm here in my chair. I see the room from my viewpoint. She's aware of her body with all its aches and pains. I'm aware of my body. She's aware of her thoughts and feelings. I'm aware of my thoughts and feelings. But when she tunes up her mind and notices the knower, there's nothing there. Pure awareness. And when I look behind my eyes and notice the noticer, there's nothing there. The self in you is the self in me. And that's true for everyone, even if in their intellect they don't know it. How to know God? Realize who you are. Then you will know who God is. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
न ह्यादेशस्वरूपेऽस्ति तत आदेष्ट वर्जितं स्वं रूपं स्वात्मना पश्य शुद्धबुद्धिसमाश्रयम्. In regard to one's real nature, there is indeed no instruction possible. Therefore, it is without an instructor. Perceive your own nature perceive your own nature having the pure intellect as its residence by your own self, that is, by objectless pure awareness of oneself. Note,
So, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Note, pure intellect refers to the intellect freed from objects. The path to self-knowledge is essentially the removal of all objective thought and abidance as pure objectless awareness where there is only the feeling I am. This is the investigation of one's real nature, which is the means of the knowledge of the mother stated in the previous verse.
Yes. Now, the thing we want to understand here, what is the instrument of knowledge for knowing the self? In the world, we know things by what's technically called the triplety, the triple factor. There's a knower, as Swamiji would say, knowing, and known. What do I mean? I am the knower. Seeing is the means of knowledge. Coffee table is the object of knowledge. I am the knower. Hearing is the means of knowledge. Traffic noises are the objects of knowledge. I can go through the entire phenomenal world that way. I am the knower. Manas, or mind, is the means of knowledge. Feelings, judgments are the objects of knowledge. I am the knower. Buddhi is the means of knowledge. Thought is the object of knowledge. Are you you? How do you know it? You do not see, hear, taste, touch, smell, emote, or think yourself. Yet you do not doubt your existence. So the instrument for knowing the self is the self itself. It is self-evident, swayambhu, self-shining, swayam jyoti. I am the knower. I is the means of knowledge. I is that which is known, but not as an object. It's different. It's in a different dimension. Then the subtle intellect goes, oh, I get it. There's nobody there. That subtle intellect, the buddhi, then becomes buddha, awake. That moment of recognition, pratyabhignana, is the aha that takes place in the intellect. But it is not the intellect that is the instrument of knowing the self. It's the intellect that reflects on it. I like to do this example. Where you are, bring your attention to the waistband of your trousers around your waist. Can you feel your waistband around your waist? Okay. Now, you've been having that experience since you put your pants on this morning, probably. But you weren't paying attention to it. So the means of direct experience is the skin of your tummy. But the intellect can say, oh, yes, I can feel that. I put on a few pounds. My pants are too tight. You can think about it. You can reflect on your direct experience. So that's what happens in the subtle intellect. That's different than reading a book in the intellect saying, oh, yes, it says in this Upanishad that I am the self. Okay, yes, I know that. That's different than in a quiet mind with the reversal of the attentive faculty. You directly investigate your actual experience. Yup, it's me. It's fast. It's silent. It's empty. Extremely pure Vishuddha. This is the methodology. Next verse.
Devaditarya gantanam bhantam bhanairabhasitam bhantam sarvatra sarvasya sarvada manavirjatam. It is shining as the self of all, from the gods to the animals and birds, and it is not illumined by objective perceptions. It is shining everywhere for everyone, always without proof.
Yes. So nobody doubts I. And it not only is the awareness within all people, but in dogs and cows and worms and germs. What is different is the equipment that it illumines. In fact, it is the substratum of everything. So even the most miserable of people, you go up to them and say, how's your day? Oh, I am miserable today. I am suffering. Oh, I'm so sorry. And then you investigate a bit. So what's suffering? Well, my body hurts and I'm really sad and depressed. Oh, so do you know the pain in your body? Of course I do. Do you know the sadness and the depression? Yes. Do you exist? Yes. What's your existence? Miserable. Do you know the misery? Yes, I know the misery. They never doubt. I am. I know. I shine. Now, you may come upon a Shunyavadin. This is a brand of Buddhists, the scholiasts of the void, who say ultimate reality is zero. It's nothing. There is no ultimate truth. I know that there is nothing. Oh, so you don't have a self? No, I do not have a self. Have you experienced that you don't have a self? Yes, I've experienced I don't have a self. And to whom did that experience occur? It's illogical. It's unprovable. It's like saying, do you know what I had for lunch? You do not know. Why? You were not there. So if you were actually to disappear, how would you know it? And in fact, your direct experience is that it's an eternal factor. It's nityam. We have these sections in Gita where Krishna says, I taught yoga to the sun. Our modern language, we could say, I was there before the Big Bang. Doesn't mean Krishna as a person, an avatar, was there. It means consciousness is birthless, changeless, deathless. It's not only outside of time, nitya, but it's sanatanam, it's ancient too. Purana. Don't believe me. Don't believe Hemaleka. In a quiet mind, having renounced all your concerns for the world, giving up all struggles, notice the knower, what's there. Who sees the thoughts and the space between the thoughts. See if what Hemaleka is saying is true. Maybe you're a little gray ball with wings. Maybe you are not infinite winsome consciousness. Maybe you're a little flame the size of your thumb. Maybe you're a being with wings. But remember, if you can know it, If you can see it, if you can experience it, it's not self. You're the one who sees all that stuff. Drop it. Wonderful chapter. Next verse.
Katham kutra kada kena nirupya te tapi leshatah mannetram darshayetyeva muktametat prayadhuna. How, where, when, and by which proof can it be determined or proved even a little? Dear, this is spoken in this manner. Show me my eyes now. Note. This refers to the utterance, prove the existence of the self. No one can show a person's eyes to that person himself. Even so is proving the existence of the self.
Yes. So, one of the things you need to know when you see it, it is absolutely self validating. When you get it, you don't need the guru to give you an enlightenment certificate. If you think you need an enlightenment certificate, you are a fool. It is absolutely self validating. Swallows all doubt. But understand, just because you cannot know it as an object does not mean that it is unknown. And she uses the classic example. Show me your eyes. Look at your eyes. Nobody can look at their eyes. If you can't look at your eyes, you must not have eyes. No, my eyes are that by which I see objects. That's the proof of their existence. So also, the objects of cognition are various and many. Disregard objective knowledge and notice who knows them all. And again, it isn't like, oh, there it is. It's like get rid of the fog, get rid of the dust. And what remains is just aham, aham, ah. Next verse.
Natracharyasya yopayogo yatha nayana darshane nipunopi mahacharya katham netram pradarshayet. In this matter, there is no use for a teacher as in seeing one's own eyes. How can a great teacher, though clever, point out one's eyes to himself?
There's a funny story about a princess. I think her name's Damayanti. Damayanti was kind of a bit strange. And she used to go down to this lake, this pool, every morning. And she would look at her reflection in the pool, comb her long black hair, admire her beauty. One day when she went down to the pool, it was a bit of a wind, and the surface of the lake, the pool, was agitated. So she looks in and she could not see her reflection. So she has this very strange idea. Oh, I don't have a head. I can't see my head. I don't have a head. So she runs back to the palace. She runs around shouting, I don't have a head. I don't have a head. Now the ministers stop her and say, Damayanti, dear, your head is on top of your shoulders where it's always been. And she says, no, no, no. I looked into the pool of water and I had no head. So a couple of the wiser ministers say, well, I know what we can do. So they tie her to a pillar. She struggles and struggles and struggles and struggles. Finally, she settles down a bit. And then the minister says, Damayanti, dear, your head is on top of your shoulders, where it's always been. She goes, no, I don't know it. So there was another fellow who was really quite eloquently smart, and he happened to have a stick with him. So he has it behind his back. He walks up to Damayanti and he goes, whack, on top of her head. And she goes, ouch! And he says, that's your head, stupid. Damayanti was amazed. So they untied her, and she ran around the palace in great joy, going, I have a head. I have a head. And after a while, she settled down and she realized that everybody has a head. The ministers walking up and down the hallways all had heads. The queen with her retinue, they all had heads. There was the king and the prince, they all had heads. And finally, she returned to sanity. So this is a story about our sadhana. At some point, we get this strange idea. I do not know myself. I do not know who I am. It's like Damayanti saying, I don't have a head. I don't know my head. So she goes to the ministers. That's like us going to read scripture, going to satsang, where we learn what our self-nature is. You are that eternal factor, ever the illuminating Brahman. No, but it's not me. I'm miserable. So they tie her to a pillar. This is meditation. What do we do in meditation? We immobilize the senses. We withdraw our attention inside. Then at some auspicious moment, the mind stops. We see it. Maybe with the help of the Guru. But not always. So then what happens? We return from it. Oh, I know the self. I must be a Mahatma now. I know the self. And then all of a sudden you realize everybody has a self. And the only real knowledge of the self is the self-evidence of the self. And everybody already has that. And then we get a little bit of sanity. The point Hemaleka is saying, in the end, the teacher cannot show you the self. This is secret initiation. I'm going to open my little black bag. Here is the self. No. It's you. What do we need to do? Remove our attention from the knowable until all that remains is the knower. And you investigate to find out about it. You see what's there. Next verse.
Ato guru rupayotra tadupaya pradarshanat tatte vyakshamya yupayam tachranu sanyata manasah. Therefore, in this matter, a guru is the means on account of his pointing out the means for that, self-realization. Hence, I shall tell you the means. Hear that with your mind controlled.
So the guru can point for us. It's like this. Do you see the tree over yonder? Yes, I see the tree. Do you see that uppermost branch of the tree? Yes, I see that uppermost branch. Now, if you look, can you see that very topmost leaf? The very edge of it is turning brown. Do you see that leaf? Oh, yes, I see that leaf. Now, if you lift your vision about 10, 15 degrees, you will see the daytime crescent moon. There it is. So if you go out and someone says, oh, we have a daytime crescent moon, where is it? Where is it? It's too thin, I can't see it. So the guru starts by pointing at something gross, more subtle, more subtle. And then finally, we go through the Pancha Kosha, the 5 koshas. Oh yes, I studied the Pancha Kosha. But their only point is, you are not the body. You are not the prana. You are not the mind. You are not the intellect with its jiva bhavana. You are not even pure ignorance. Who are you? What is that by which those upadhis are known? So the guru can point. That's her job. And the scriptures serve as a bridge. In Vivekachudamani, Shankara says, without knowledge of the self, study of the scriptures is futile, because you're going to get lost in your own stupid ideas. With knowledge of the self, study of the scriptures is again futile. You have become an Upanishad. What needed you for the scriptures? So what's the purpose of the scriptures? In that relationship between Guru and Shishya, the scriptures become the pramana, the means of knowledge by which the vision of the teacher is transmitted to the student. Okay, next verse.
Yavat tvam atmani mama Ityevam tu pratipashyasi tata param nijam rupam yanmameti na bhati te. As long as you perceive or become aware in yourself thus, this is mine, your own true nature or self, which does not appear to you as mine, is different from that which appears as mine.
So, I am not the body is mine. I am not the energy is mine. I am not the feelings are mine. So it's never myself. I'm going to know myself as a possession. As long as you're focused on knowable things, possessible things, that's not it. We have to withdraw our attention and identification from all of that. Now, this can get subtle. We were working in this in Viveka Chudamani the last couple of weeks. Many of us have a habituated series of stories by which we concretize self. I was an abused child. I am very, very smart. I was teased terribly on the playground. I came from a family, we were always poor, or I had these terrible childhood sicknesses. So we become identified with these stories. We carry them around. So the subtle thing here is to see them for what they are. They're ways in which egoism reinforces itself. And the psychologist wouldn't like what I'm saying. Yoga says, drop it. You are not these stories. But what about my trauma? You may go down that road if you want to do that, if your mind is gross. But if you've developed some subtlety of mind, you are not your trauma, drop it. It never happened to you, it just happened to the body. All those memories are like dreams. Drop. I'm follow the Chinmay Mission postings of Swami Chinmayananda on Facebook. And this past week, there was a marvelous one. And this disciple was telling a story how Swamiji told a joke in satsang. Everybody laughed. He was a great, great jokester. And then he's teaching and teaching, and then he stops and he tells the same joke a second time. And people kind of titter, they laugh. And then he tells it a third time and nobody laughs. He goes on teaching and he tells the joke a fourth time and nobody laughs. And he says, now notice, I tell the joke once and you laugh. I tell it over and over and you don't laugh. But you tell yourself a miserable story and you weep. And you tell it over and over and over again and weep and weep and weep. All right, I think we'll end here. What verse are we on, Punit?
We finished the 13th verse.
And we'll start with verse 14. Now, I need to let you know there will be no class next week. No class next week. We will resume in 2 weeks. I will put out an email to let people know I'm participating in Christian Holy Week ceremonies on Thursday. So I will not be here. So I will see you all in 2 weeks. Now we have time for questions. Any questions or thoughts about what we've covered this evening?
Jim.
Jim,
Yes.
maybe a little silly question, but in this way of going about it, it seems like sleep is just an instant away.
You'll have to speak a
you're not-
little louder. I'm having a hard time hearing you.
I'm saying that in the method that has been described so far, it seems that sleep might be just an instant away, sort of at the brink. How does one walk around it?
I say the first part again. I didn't quite understand it.
Sleep. I'm saying that.
Oh, sleep.
Yes.
Don't worry about sleep. Nobody ever got enlightened in sleep. At night, when you're tired, go to sleep. In the morning, wake up. That's all you need to know about sleep.
Okay.
Now, I can go into some of the philosophical things, but don't get caught up with it. It's pointless. There's no value in it. There's no value in going down that road. I mean, the scriptures talk about it through the law of memory. You cannot remember something you haven't experienced. So if you slept soundly last night and you wake up in the morning, your experience is, oh, I must have slept so soundly, I don't remember a thing. But you don't know if I slept soundly because you weren't there to experience it. So what you are illuminating is blackness. It is similar to the difference between being in a room that's completely dark, all the curtains are drawn, and you cannot see, as opposed to being blind. If you're blind and someone lights a match, you don't see it. But in the middle of the night, if a loud noise happens outside, you immediately wake up and know it. I like to use this idea. So this hand is like the self, always shining. Here is the mind. It's going through its 3 states. It is in the waking state, projected into the world. It's now dreaming, all concerned with its internal images. It's folded up in deep sleep. Now watch very carefully. Samadhi. And when the mind returns, it goes, oh my gosh, there's nobody there. But we'll get to that. I don't know if that is helpful. A lot of people wrestle with this idea that you, in fact, are aware in sleep. And that doesn't mean you're thinking in sleep.
Okay. Yeah, that's useful, Jim.
Another example is if you have a flashlight, or better yet, if you have a camera and you want to take pictures and you've got the lens cap on, you can be clicking away. And what are you going to be taking pictures of? The backside of the lens cap. So because it's covered, cannot take pictures of the world. My iPhone takes lots of pictures of the inside of my pocket for some reason. Do other people have that?
Yeah.
Pull it out, and I look at photos, and then there's 2 rows of just blackness. That's like deep sleep. So you're aware. You're not thinking. You can't say, oh, I'm aware. That's a thought. But you are illuminating blackness. But some people think, they read in scriptures, oh, the self never sleeps. They want, oh God, I'm going to stay up all night. Don't go there. Don't go there. Everything you need for self-realization, and really the only place, is in the ordinary waking state. That's where it happens. Is that useful?
Yes, very much, Jim. Thank you.
All right, Vishwa, did you have a question?
Yeah, Jim, I think you've explained this before, but if you could repeat again, a few sentences back in the middle, you were saying that it is in the mind that you differentiate between self and thought of self.
Yes.
It is in the mind. And I always find it so funny that it's always in an impure place like the mind, where this pure stuff, this distinction has to happen.
The self does not discriminate. The self witnesses discrimination. Discrimination takes place in the subtle intellect. The self has no activity. The self does nothing. It just is and shines. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Any other questions? All right, let's sit.